Hello, and welcome to our Reimagine Lent and Easter Again webinar. I'm John Poitevin. I'm the Director of Programs for Parish Catalyst, and I'm so glad that you joined us today. You are some of those folks that are thinking ahead. I think as we're still recovering from Christmas, especially in just this environment that we're in where everything feels like more work. I know it's hard to plan far ahead like this. It's really not that far. But even in preparing for this webinar, it was a challenge finding parish leaders that had been talking and planning and thinking ahead. So I'm thankful to them for they are providing some content for us to think about as we plan. But one thing as I talk to parish leaders around the country, one thing that is really clear is that although we're going through a common challenge right now, we are all facing very different scenarios, different challenges within the challenge of pandemic that we're facing. And some of those challenges you might be facing might be the weather where you are. Parishes that are up in New Jersey or New York are facing very different challenges than parishes that are in California that maybe have no change in their outdoor masses or anything like that. You might be facing diocesan rules and protocol. Everyone is facing that in different ways. I talked to one pastor who in their diocese, they're freely allowed to have outdoor masses or even parking lot masses. I may talk to another one who has very different restrictions. Even as we have Ash Wednesday coming up, right? There's a myriad, as you'll see, of different ways that people are approaching Ash Wednesday. I have two pastors that are even in the same city that, their parishes are looking at it very differently. It could be community challenges that you're facing. I talked to a pastor yesterday who has 20 funerals on his schedule right now, 20 funerals, and over half of those are COVID related. But he's never experienced anything. He was literally leaving a funeral, leaving a cemetery as we talked. Could be state or city regulations, or just pastoral preferences, leadership preferences, the attitudes that you're facing in your parish towards whether it be masking or just the pandemic in general. We're all facing unique challenges. That's why at Parish Catalyst, we're very cautious to be too prescriptive about anything, because we know that you're all processing these challenges in the midst of your community and what you're facing. But we do want to give you ideas, best practices, philosophies around things. Before we get into that, I want to thank you all for joining right now from around the country and around the world, as always. Give you a little bit of just housekeeping on how all this runs. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat window, and you can click on that, and we'll be adding in there links to different things that we mention, where you can click that link right now during the webinar, and you can go straight to a registration or a resource or anything like that. Paul and Jen from Renew are helping me out on this. You guys want to say hi real quick so everybody can see your faces? They're helping me behind the scenes, and they'll be helping you in the chat on the side, and also with the Q&A. There's a Q&A button down there that if you have any questions about things that you're hearing in real time, just click that Q&A. You'll post some questions there, and I know Paul and Jen will try to answer those as you ask them, and then hopefully we'll have some time at the end to get to some of those live for everyone as well. So I want to share with you the folks we're going to be hearing from today, and then share one thought before we get into our first conversation. You're going to hear from Monsignor George Hunt and Jan Figgenshoe. They're from St. Vincent Martyr Parish in Madison, New Jersey. Great parish, great staff and team there. You're going to hear from Mike Gormley, who is Director of Evangelization and Youth Ministry at St. Anthony of Padua in the Woodlands, Texas. You're going to also hear from Juan Sobota, Director of Operations at St. Ignatius of Loyola Catholic Community in Spring, Texas, just right down the highway from Mike at St. Anthony of Padua. But you will see, even though they're right down the highway from each other, they're approaching some things differently. Before we go into our conversation with Monsignor George and Jan, I want to share with you something that was kind of inspired by conversations that I had with him. It's a quote from Alan Hirsch that I've shared in a webinar before. But first of all, before I share this, do we have any Queen's Gambit fans out there? Go ahead, click that hand raise button if you're a Queen's Gambit fan. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. I think it's on Netflix. It's about chess. I never knew I was so interested in chess until I saw this show. But if you know anything about chess, you know the queen has the most power of any of the pieces on the board. The queen can go anywhere and do anything, pretty much. And if you lose your queen, you can still win, but it's going to be really challenging. You have to really understand the game to win without the queen. And this is a quote from Alan. He said earlier in the pandemic, listen to this. He said, now that the queen has been taken off the board, it's time to rediscover what all the other pieces can do. And what he means there is the queen for us was the holy day of obligation. It was the mass. It was that people had to go. And although having a better mass experience drastically can impact your parish, there was also a degree that it was our big event. It was the one thing that everybody wanted to come to. Well, Alan would say, that's gone. And what are we going to do now? And so, you know, one thing I always say is that disruption brings opportunity, but it also pushes us to do things that we should have done before, but we didn't. So now that the queen has been removed from our game, how will we help people grow in their faith journey? How will we help people encounter the abundant life that Christ has for them using all the other resources? And I think what I hear talking to parish leaders, especially using personal connection, which is really the best way to accompany people in their faith journey anyways, right? So I want to go now to my conversation with Monsignor George Hunt and Jan at St. Vincent Martyr Parish, as we start off talking a little bit more philosophically about how we're addressing the challenges of this time.
We're going to offer it like a hybrid.
All right, I'm here with Jan Figgenshoe and Monsignor George Hunt at St. Vincent Martyr in New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Very welcome, John.
Father George, you know, we were talking a few days ago, and I loved what you had to say about the difference between having an innovation mindset and having just an improvement mindset. And could you just share a little bit of your thoughts on that as a pastor, how you are embracing the challenges right now?
Sure. So I think everybody's of the same mind that things will never be the same as they were. Okay. So we're all anticipating moving forward. We're going to be moving forward in a different way. But for me, the key thing there is, are we going to move forward? Is it a different way we're moving forward simply change, or is it going to be transformation? And the difference, I discovered I got a little bit better insight into that in a workshop I took with the Catholic Association of United States Association of Catholic Priests. And the difference between transformation and change is transformation has us standing in the present, looking to the future, committing to the journey, embracing the unknown, and being open to new form and new function. While change stands in the present, looks to the past, tweaks the past, brings it forward, but it's the same form and function as before. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to really engage in transformation. And I think that's key for people who ground themselves in the paschal mystery of Jesus Christ, right? Because it's all about transformation. So that means, like, as we move into the future, we do so, you know, with a sense of not knowing, but at the same time with openness to what new things, what new ways of being, and what new ways of doing can we create that will speak even more deeply to the hearts and souls of our people. So as a pastor, what I try to do is to bring the language of transformation, into my preaching and into my teaching, and certainly into how we function as a staff here and our different councils, our stewardship council, our pastoral council, our finance council, just to kind of get us thinking and moving in that way. So kind of grounding ourselves in that reality.
That is such a great way to start us. And, as I talk to pastors all over the country, it really is. You can see the different mindsets or approaches that people take, or the lenses they look through as leaders. And you see some who are just trying to figure out how to make it through this time. And then you see others that are real possibility thinkers. And it changes everything. It changes the atmosphere of their parish, of their staff. I spoke to one priest who, after 40 years as a priest, he said, "This time has reignited my missional call." And I thought, that all has to do with your perspective, right? And how you embrace it. And I appreciate that from you, that reminder. I want to get a copy of what you just read, because I'd like to share that with everybody when we send an email out after this. So let's get into the season that is ahead. Most of us are still recovering from Christmas, but
I have my Christmas decorations here.
That's right. You still have your Christmas up. I think that's okay.
Hold out to the Feast of the Presentation.
Because you go to February 2nd.
That's good. I appreciate your commitment to orthodoxy in leaving those Christmas decorations up. But let's talk first Ash Wednesday. Let's talk about what your thoughts are on it, first of all, just as a holy day, and then what your plans are as a parish.
Yeah, so sure. So in approaching Ash Wednesday, I think we need to recognize that in some way, what that day is about speaks to something in the heart and soul of our people. So many people come out that day and come to church, and as you and I, John, were talking earlier, it's not a holy day of obligation. You're not required to come that day, but so many people do. Why? It's always been, an interesting thing to reflect on why. And I think that part of it comes maybe to it speaks to a truth that we all need to own, that we all need to sometime along the way be in touch with our mortality, be in touch with our need to grow into that better version of ourselves. And I think also it taps into the sense of belonging, to receive the ashes. I belong to a greater reality there. I belong to a community that is kind of naming themselves as the Catholic Christian community in the moment. So lots of different reasons. And because that speaks to the heart and soul of people, we need to try to do whatever we can to respond to that on Ash Wednesday, given the restrictions and the limitations that we have. And so I think for us as a Catholic parish, we certainly want to be working within the guidelines that our diocese is putting out, that they kind of develop from what they heard from Rome. At the same point, we want to be able to afford to people the best possible way, or ways of coming and receiving the ashes. And one of the things that we worked on at Christmas, and that we're going to try to do for Ash Wednesday, again, is a kind of a packaging of both a remote and on-site kind of experience. So our hope for Ash Wednesday is to develop a video that would have an opening prayer and the scriptures and some reflection on the scriptures to get people disposed towards coming to the site physically in the afternoon on Ash Wednesday, where we would continue the service with a brief prayer as people are gathered in the parking lot, the distribution of ashes, and most probably the distribution of Holy Communion also. So kind of bringing it together and encouraging people to do it that way, to say that first, view the liturgy of the word, participate in that, and then come and let's celebrate, let's be together. So that seemed to work for Christmas Eve, and what we did on Christmas Eve, and we're going to give it a go for Ash Wednesday, and most probably Easter Sunday too. We go ashes to Easter, so it'll be on both ends of things.
It's great that we have had some time practicing and experimenting with some of these things like outdoor services or outdoor mass. Let's transition into Lent. And Jan, you were sharing with me earlier about some Friday evening activities that you're doing, both for men and women and families. Share with us about that.
Sure. So on our Friday nights in Lent, everything will be virtual as well as, or remote, as well as in person. We try to use the theme that we're one in the spirit. So we use that tagline for everything in our parish. So the remote people don't feel disconnected because they're not there in person. So what we'll do on the Friday nights, the first Friday night is our opening, the first Friday night in Lent. Our theme for Lent is Beyond. Has lots of different layers to it, certainly beyond that. Someday we'll be beyond this current situation we're in, and to look beyond the obvious things of Lent, to look beyond as a ways of looking deeper. So we'll have our opening service on that night. We always have a little bit of reflection. Father George sings a lot of times and plays his guitar, so people really tune into that and feel that closeness with him. There's an intimacy to that. So we'll do something that first night. Be for everyone in the parish. And then the second week, the men's spirituality group will host something for the men of the parish. The third week, the women's cornerstone team will host something for the women of the parish. I don't know how Father's planning to do the men's. I do the women, so I know how we're doing that. So we're going to offer it like a hybrid, just like the kids do at school. People can participate on a Zoom call so that we can have a little discussion. People can participate in person so we can break into small groups. And then for people that aren't comfortable with Zoom, they can just watch it on the live stream. So we'll have those three things available to people so that as many people as want to participate can. The following week, we'll do a Taizé prayer. We've done them in the past before. It's always an ecumenical thing in our town. We draw people from other faith communities. So that'll be nice if we, we'll advertise and hopefully we'll bring people. That's the nice thing about having the remote capabilities, because you can have as many viewers as you need or as want to view. And then the following week is the Feast of St. Joseph. So since the Holy Father has designated this the year of St. Joseph, we're trying to build some things toward that. On Ash Wednesday, we'll start a 30-day consecration that'll culminate in the feast on March 19th. So we'll have a Mass. Same thing, people will be invited to watch it remotely and in person. And then the following week is our last Sunday of, right? It's our last Sunday of Lent already. And so for the last last Friday of Lent, we're hoping for nice weather because we want to do a living Stations of the Cross outdoors in our parking area, or possibly throughout our grounds. We found at Christmas time, we hosted several events where we invited families, invited our older people that aren't comfortable being inside to come to the parish grounds to have that connection and that intimacy with us as a parish, even if they weren't comfortable coming in for Mass. And so we'll do the same thing. We'll stage the Stations of the Cross and have people have that experience in the early evening. It's after the light changes, so that all can work. And so that's pretty much how we've lined up the Friday nights. We're going to be offering communion on every Sunday. After the Masses, as Father said, people can watch the Mass remotely and then get in their car, come down to the parking lot, receive Holy Communion. Our Knights of Columbus are instrumental in making the logistics of that work. We've done that many times. Rain, shine, snow flurries, it's all worked out fine. People are so happy for that blessing. So that's what we're looking at. We'll probably also put together some sort of a Lent kit that we send home for families and households to worship with us. We have our meeting this week, so I can't really answer exactly what'll go into that, but there's some of the things we're looking at to connect the remote people, the people that are not comfortable yet being in person, the people that are in person. Some people only come occasionally, just to bring us all together so we can have the experience of Lent and that transformative experience of Lent together as a parish family.
I love that you just described so many different ways for people to participate. And I think right now, I think for the foreseeable future, I think that's the key to increase parish-wide participation. You said people can come in person. They can participate in an interactive Zoom call for the women's retreat, or they can just live stream it and watch it that way if they're not savvy to participating in Zoom. And then you even have other things that are both and. They watch online and then come afterwards and participate. So I think we know that it's not just like we're going to flip a switch one day and everybody goes back to normal.
That's not happening, right?
Right. And so for a diverse ways of people getting involved, it's important for us to create different things for all the different levels of safety that people feel accustomed to or want to participate in. Um, Father George, tell us about, you have some ideas about something that you haven't like fully realized yet, but something maybe planting seeds during Lent, something to involve families outside, outdoors at the parish.
Yeah, so what we try to do, as Jan mentioned, during the Advent and Christmas season is to create events where people could come and be outdoors and at the same time come as families. We try to make it something that would be appealing to families. So, being that we move through Lent towards Easter season, springtime season, new birth, new life, and all, I'm thinking that we probably would try to do something here that would kind of gather the community outside, maybe do some kind of thing of the blessing of creation, perhaps do some planting of seeds in different places here right on the grounds, and then send seed home to everybody at home to plant seeds somewhere in their yard or in the flower pot in their window if they're in an apartment or something like that. So our whole idea is to connect the church with the little church, which is the household, the home. So the more ways that we can do that, I feel the better it is, because again, we create that sense of connectedness. That's the main thing that we want to really keep on emphasizing and trying to help foster the sense of connectedness, the sense of accompanying one another, on this continued journey through life and through the journey through Lent to Easter. So we'll see. We have the meeting this week. We'll see what pans out on that.
Great. I love you sharing those ideas with us. And you also had mentioned with the Stations of the Cross, you're looking at two different scenarios that you haven't figured out yet. Either a stage with kind of a passion play-ish version of the Stations of the Cross, or actually people drive through the different stations. And a lot of people, that will just depend on logistics or even, the number of people they have to pull it off. But those are great ideas. Well, another way that families can participate and bring the church into the home is Palm Sunday. That's a traditional way that we do that. What are you thinking about for Palm Sunday?
Well, I think we pick up on something we did last year, along with what's more possible, or it's going to be possible this year. So everything indicates that we will be allowed to distribute palm for this Palm Sunday. So that kind of opens up a whole different kind of scenario. Certainly, we'll have some people coming physically. We do want to have an outdoor liturgy on Palm Sunday, which will be able to distribute palm to people there, and they could have a part of that. There would be ways of having people come by to pick up palm and bring to their home if they're going to watch remotely. But then there's the other thing also that we did last year, which people enjoyed, and they sent us pictures and all, and that was to invite them to go out to their yard and to find a branch, because actually when you pray the prayer of blessing over the palms, it says, God bless these branches. Okay, so we're hearing branch, and so they would go out, and of course they told them they have to thank whatever tree they take that from for giving up its branch to be a part of liturgy, right? And they brought that into the home. And then when we did the liturgy remote, when we did the blessing of palms, the blessing of branches, their branch would also be blessed, at that moment. And then some people put it on their doors or kept it in a certain way. And some folks enjoyed like sending pictures to us of their home sanctuaries, if you will, as it progressed during the week for Passion Sunday, Palm Sunday, the Lord's Passion, and through the week of Holy Week. So we'll probably pull from some of the things we did last year and kind of combine them with new things from this year and create whatever way we can for people to participate.
I love that idea of people taking pictures and sharing through social media or wherever how they're participating at home. Jan, I know that connecting people at home in a way that they feel like they belong to what's happening is really important to you. Tell me about Holy Week, some ways that you're going to be doing that, as we probably have more people participating virtually than we do in person. What are you doing to help them feel connected?
Yeah, that's certainly true, because last year, one of the first big event of the Holy Week experience, when we were totally sheltered in, was Palm Sunday, and our 10:30 Mass, which when our church, we have a small church, when our church is really full, we can squeeze in 475 people. We have 13,000 people. So all of a sudden we knew that there's a lot, 13,000 views. So we knew we have a lot, it's a bigger world out there, right? So, so I think then that definitely influenced how we went forward with the rest of Holy Week. And certainly those, not those numbers, but we certainly have large numbers. So we know there's an audience out there. There's people that want to participate, that consider themselves connected to our parish, maybe on a temporary basis. Maybe they're going to always stop in with our parish and do things with another parish. So what we did last year, which I think will continue as a variation this year, is we were able to do, when we reserved the Blessed Sacrament on Holy Thursday, a lot of people are heartbroken. They couldn't do the old tradition of visiting different churches, coming to our church. And so we set up our camera in such a way, we changed the area where we reserved the Blessed Sacrament, so that we could have it within our camera range. And we kept that set up until midnight. And then at 11:45, we did our normal night prayer that we always do, and closed up the church, and just gave people a chance to spend that quiet time, as much time as they wanted that evening. And that was very successful. And I think very comforting for people. It was heartbreaking last year for people that they wouldn't be in church for Holy Week. This year, we're in a different mindset. We're getting a little used to this, I guess. It's almost a year, but there will still be people who cannot come or will not be able to feel comfortable to come on the Feast of the Lord's Supper. So we'll still do some variation of that. I don't know yet if we'll be able to visit churches and have people come in after the Mass that evening. We did the same thing with the Veneration of the Cross on Good Friday. We set up a beautiful display with our cross. We kept our camera set on it. We had nice music in the background. We do a lot with our flock note, where we're connecting people with the parish. So we'll send out notices. These are the hours of this. This is when this is going to happen. People seem to like those reminders. And it just keeps everyone connected. The one thing I find, even with sending those reminders, is even if I can't participate in it, I think people find comfort in knowing their parish is doing something. And so we'll continue some of those practices as well as other things. But, we still have the 6-foot distancing restriction, the limitation in people in our church. So we will not be able to have the 500 or 600 people squeezed in there for Good Friday services. And so our remote will be very important, and just making sure people understand when it's there. The other thing that I would just say to people who do use their remote a lot, I don't know if they find this to be true, but I find that we have a lot of people watch things on demand. That's one thing that has really opened up to the Catholic world, that if I can't be at the 8:30 Mass on Friday morning, I can watch Mass and participate on my lunch hour or after the kids take their nap or whatever. So that's the beautiful thing about always thinking of that when we're talking about our remote presence, because it doesn't have to be in real time. So.
Oh, those are great reminders. And especially those numbers are crazy. 450 in the church, thousands online.
Christmas was the same way. It blew our minds. It always blows our minds, quite frankly. I'm a numbers person, so I play with them all the time. And Father George is not, but I force him to listen and be excited because I'm excited. But it was really important last year when the church was empty for us to know on the other side of that camera, there were lots of people waiting for their experience of church. And it's still important for us to remember that. You look out in the church and it's a little sad at times because it's not as packed as it would have been at a Christmas, or it'll happen in Holy Week, it'll happen on Ash Wednesday. But you can look at that camera and know that that camera has 1,000 hearts joining together for Mass with you. So I think that, I'm not a celebrant obviously, but I think for our priests, I think that's probably meaningful. Father George mentions it all the time.
I think there's some good things for us to remember there that don't just apply to Easter, they apply to all the time. One is that always take time to welcome those watching online during the welcome time at the Mass. During the announcements, always speak. Anytime you have an opportunity to speak to the people watching online and let them know that they're a part of this, that they are valued and they're in your thoughts and your prayers, they're a part of the community. Please take those opportunities to do that. And I would say, even when you think about the production aspect of all of this, I used to work in the music industry, and whenever we were doing a live production that was going to be televised, if you're there in person, the lighting and everything that's done is not for you, because there are thousands upon thousands more that are going to be watching live, and that's what they have in mind when they create the production. I would say when you're thinking about doing things that are going to be watched in mass numbers online, really, really take into consideration whether it be lighting or where the cameras are, or especially the audio. Um, Consider that thousands more are probably having that experience than what you are in the church. And please, be kind and cater towards them to have a fantastic experience online. With that in mind, let's talk about Easter weekend. And what are you planning, Father George? I know you learned a lot from Christmas that you're carrying in to Easter this year. What do you have in mind for that?
Well, we'll probably do the same thing we did on Christmas Eve, but again, inviting people to gather as a family to view the Easter liturgy, probably be more on Easter Day, and then to come to the parking lot as a family to receive communion on Easter afternoon. It's going to be kind of interesting. We're still kind of working out the details on that because we are able to have people here for worship at the same time, and of course, we do increase the number of masses so that, that we will be able to avail that opportunity to those who want. We were very pleased at Christmas time that we feel that we were able to accommodate everybody who wanted to worship. We were able to accommodate them on site if they wanted to worship on site, not necessarily at the mass they wanted to be or in the seat they wanted to be, but nonetheless at mass. And, so we're hoping that we can kind of accomplish the same thing at Easter along with taking care of our remote community too, as part of that. So again, we'll probably package something in a particular liturgy and then come to the parking lot to have to participate in communion and just kind of be aware of any other things that we might we'll probably introduce a sunrise service where we have a parish cemetery that would be able to accommodate people also outside. That's another opportunity for a liturgy at sunrise on Easter Day. So we'll see. It's a work in progress. It's all a work in progress, always.
Always, but you're always open and you're always creative, and I so appreciate that. And I spoke about another part of Easter and Christmas, and that is the collection. And I know we don't like to talk about that sometimes, but it's a big deal. It's important. And you've had a great success, if you want to call it that, with those collections. Share with us what you did at Christmas and how it seemed to really resonate with people.
Yeah. So first of all, and I'm hoping it's the same for other parish leadership. Our community has been extraordinarily generous through this entire pandemic. Not only in terms of their continued support, financial support of the church, but in an amazing way in the outreach things that we've done. So we had to change the way we did our Thanksgiving drive and our giving tree and different ways for people to give. We couldn't actually get the gifts, but it was amazing, overwhelming people's generosity. And so, given that people were being generous, we don't like to harp on the on the collection thing. We know that people have been faithful to their stewardship committee commitment. But then again, on Christmas, we knew that there would be people joining us remotely and on site that maybe don't come all the other Sundays of the year remotely or on site. So we figured that we needed to do something to draw attention to the ways that they could make their Christmas contribution. So we developed a statement that, first of all, recognized the fact that some people are struggling financially through this and that we were holding them in prayer. And actually, if we could be of assistance to them, please reach out to us. And then those who were able to give, we kind of outlined the ways that they could do that, whether it was, to donate online, to send their envelope in, to do that through Parish Pay. Those who were at church to drop us a collection, put on the baskets that were at the doors of the church. So we kind of outlined. But I think the most excellent part of it was that we had a parishioner kind of make this statement. So the reader, whoever the reader was at the mass, after the universal prayer, as the altar was being prepared for for the present preparation of the gifts, they spoke this statement to their fellow parishioners, and I just think it was really a wonderful way of communicating a truth, and that is that we share a responsibility for the stewardship of treasure in the parish. And I think it was a beautiful outgrowth of our stewardship work here in the parish. And I have to say that just the general sense of giving and stepping up to participate, and we've developed a lot of different ministries to help us through time of trying to secure the safety of all. I give great thanks to the work of our men and women who are on our stewardship council, who have worked so hard to grow stewardship here in the parish. And I think what we're seeing has been a real testimony to the fruit of their labor, and how our people have embraced that message and embraced the stewardship way of life. So it's really about the community. It's and not about not about the pastor saying we need this. It's all of us owning it together. That's it.
I think that's such a great truth, that when a parishioner shares that with the language of we and what we're called to do and what we get to be a part of as we give here, and even if there's an opportunity for them to share a witness of how generosity has blessed their own life and they're grateful for it, and you might be surprised at how that translates into actual giving towards the parish as they see the parish giving to the community. Thank you all so much for this time. So grateful to know you and your parish. And I can't wait to hear about everything that you do this year. And I wish I could be there for your sunrise service. I think that will be awesome. But thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, John. You've been a blessing to our community too. We appreciate all the work you've done with us, and we look forward to continued collaboration with you also. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
See you all.
Great stuff. You can see why we love that parish and Father George and Jan. I love that they're always trying new things. A conversation that he and I had that did not make it into that interview was this question, which I think might be the most important question of all. How will we connect with these people and follow up with them? And how will we get them involved in our community? Anybody can draw a crowd. Anybody can put on an event. Anybody can, it's not hard to get a big turnout for Ash Wednesday or for Easter. And yes, there's challenges now to doing that virtually or around the protocols of COVID. But the bigger question is, how can we connect with these people in a way that we don't just see them once or twice or 3 times a year? That's the question I ask you to wrestle with as a team. And I want you to think about inviting them to things other than just Mass. The reason you only see them once a year is not because they're not sure of when your Mass times are, right? I know parishes will hand out things at Easter or Ash Wednesday, like, here's our Mass times. They're not confused about your Mass times. There's a bigger issue. There's a bigger problem at play that has to do with their hearts. It has to do with their view of the church and whether they think they would even be enriched by being a part of this community. So we always talk about communicating from the why. Like, how can you communicate to these people why it is fulfilling and enriching to be a part of this community, and give them other opportunities other than just watching online or Mass, opportunities to serve the poor, opportunities to be a part of a young couples group or a young married group or a seniors group or a women's group or a men's group. I encourage you to find creative ways to connect with these people and help meet what we call a felt need in their life. Talk about what might be the felt needs of these people that we only see once a year, that we could connect with in a way that they would get to know more people and build relationships in our community, that they might want to come to Mass more than once or twice a year. So before we go any further, I want to take just a break to talk about some Lenten resources that are available through Renew. And Paul is going to share those with you. Thank you, Paul.
Great, thanks, John. And I think Jen will actually provide a link for these resources in your chat button. So what I want to say is Renew offers many small group resources for Lent and also resources for individual devotion. So simply go on our website, renewintl.org, and click on the little link for the store, and you'll see a Lenten collection. And again, we have resources in English and Spanish for small groups and also for individual devotion. And the other thing I want to let you know is that we at Renew and staff here are actually providing online faith sharing groups during Lent. So we'll lead the groups. If you don't have an opportunity to do so in your parish with those resources I just mentioned, join one of the groups that we offer here on Renew online. And for that, go to the events and webinar tab on our webpage and you can sign up. And that's it, John.
Thank you, Paul. And also want to remind you once again about our learning communities. The video at the beginning said January, February. That's incorrect. April and August. So we have our first ever nationwide virtual learning community happening in April. And that is April 19th. And we have several parishes already registered for that. We have about 6 slots open. If you are interested in being in a cohort or a community with other really great creative parish leaders around the country, like Monsignor Hunt, and the people we're going to be talking with later today, Mike Gormley was a part of a learning community. If you want to be processing all the challenges you're facing and planning for the future in a community with parish leaders like this around the country, really encourage you to check out our virtual learning community. It is just an awesome way to learn, to grow together, to be more strategic in the way that you plan for the future, and to collaborate and do that with others. So check that out. You can click the link that's in the chat window right now, virtual learning communities, and I'll call you personally and we'll just talk about it, see if it might be a fit for your parish. Before we go into this last conversation with Mike Gormley, I want to just tell you a few things other parishes are doing around the country. One is something that Jan mentioned, and that is these Lenten bags or Lenten kits. I'll show you a picture of one now. I know St. Bridget's in San Diego, I talked to Marianne Russell yesterday, they're doing these. And these kits are awesome because families can take them home and participate at home. And there, you can have a ministry make them. Theirs has a purple cloth, a cross, a candle, daily reflections, both for adults and for families during Lent, a Stations of the Cross handout with images of their Stations of the Cross, and then worship aids for any time they're going to join online. Also, Diane Vella, who is on this webinar right now, she put in the chat window, she's at St. Bernard's in Levittown, New York. She said that we're recording stations at various sites in our community, connecting each site with one of the Stations of the Cross, and it's viewable online at any time. I love these ideas. If you want to share some with us in the chat window, we'll share them with others. Also, I'm not going to have time to talk to Ron Swoboda at St. Ignatius of Loyola, but I want to share with you something they're doing, and it's called the Art of Neighboring. And the Art of Neighboring is a small group study, 6 weeks, and it's based around this idea: what if Jesus meant that we should really love our actual neighbors? What if that was really the second greatest commandment, which it is? And, you know, as Lent is a time of denying ourselves, what could be more self-denying than to give our time and our energy and our hearts to our neighbors, to serve them, just as Christ came to the earth, not to be served, but to serve. And so this is a great small group resource, and it's really powerful. It really challenges us just to love our neighbors as ourselves in practical ways. So encourage you to check that out. That'll be in the email that follows up this afterwards. So, all right, let's go now to my conversation with Mike Gormley. As I said, this will be our last interview of the webinars. We're running a little bit late, but feel free to continue to share your questions with us. And let's go now to Mike Gormley. we are into our second Easter Holy Season amid COVID. What are your plans for Ash Wednesday?
Yeah, so that's been a huge area of contention. And so right now we're all in a state of flux. We just had a big liturgy meeting. Cardinal Sarah from the Vatican's Office of Worship, they sent out this thing saying, hey, why don't you do, instead of doing crosses on people's foreheads, why don't you sprinkle the ashes, which is a traditional Roman way of sprinkling into the hair on top of the head. It's very biblical, ash on the head type thing, instead of doing a cross. And so we were debating this because otherwise you got to sanitize a thumb or sanitize a forehead. So we asked around to about 15 different parishes and we asked what they were doing. One priest said, it's communicated by droplets, not by skin contact. We're not changing anything. And I was like, whoa, that's bold. So we began looking at this, and the question was, should we have everyone sanitize their foreheads? And while I was thinking about it, I just said, listen, guys, there is less contact. I mean, think about giving Holy Communion. You're putting it in their hand, right? Where you're coming in contact with their hands. You're not immediately sanitizing afterwards. Most churches don't. I said, this is about 10 times less interaction than a potentially contagious interaction than giving Holy Communion. We've never had a single incident. We've done all the tracing, all the stuff. We've had people with COVID come to Mass. They find out a day later and no one else got sick around them. So we feel like the current structures of sanitizing whatever is strong and in place. So right now we are leaning to just doing, everyone wearing masks, everyone coming forward, social distance, but they'll receive the ashes probably, this is what I'm thinking, directly onto the forehead like normal and go about their business. I mean, just think of it. I feel like we're continuing to inculcate fear in people because it's less contagious potential than communion. And so it's like, just calm down and we got this. So I want to bring less fear into the environment. So that's really what we're probably going to go with.
What I'd really like to talk to you about, but we don't have time, is why Ash Wednesday, not a day of holy obligation, is the most attended day of the year. But that'll be for another webinar.
Yeah.
Would love to pick your brain on that. So let's move into Lent now. What, I think everybody's thinking, some of the same things, Lenten small groups, virtual small groups, anything outside of that you have talked about or are thinking about doing?
Yeah, right now it looks like we're gonna. I'm a big fan of Ascension Press. I've done some work with them. My podcast is hosted through them, but they really do have excellent resources that are built for like parish-wide initiatives, right? And so we are looking at their Lenten program that Father Mark Toops put together, and it's super accessible to the average parishioner. So our hope is that we can get the content, everything up and running, and so that can be easily distributable and done by individuals in their homes. Now, in years past, we had a much bigger staff. We probably had like a staff that was twice as big with full-time employees than we do now. So we've lost a lot of people, income's down. A lot of people are a lot of churches in the same boat. But what we did in the past was I would write the meditations. Another person would produce videos. Another person would produce handwritten reflections. And then we would do communal penances as a parish. So each week they would change. So I made them like really intense every week. And you can do an intense thing like 0 social media for 7 days, whatever it might be. And people loved it. But now, because we don't have, I can't just pull a team together like I could in the past. We're spread way too thin for that. I'm becoming a youth minister again starting on Sunday. So we just decided that we would minimize what we are doing and just offer an already produced thing. Why reinvent the wheel kind of thing.
Right. I think that's smart. I think especially when thinking about caring for your staff and people that are already probably fatigued from all the extra things we've been doing. Smart to do the same thing in a more efficient way. And man, I wish I could be in your youth group. I'm probably aged out of that a little bit, but that's going to be a fun. That's going to be a fun group. Anything else during Lent as far as opportunities for people to connect with others online or any other kind of content that you're going to put out there?
Yeah. So right now, because of the minimal staff, the extra stuff that we're doing is going to get ramped back, because the other thing that we're dealing with is we're not really allowed to do large scale penance services, which usually we do. The churches in the area get together and they plan out, when are you going to do yours, when are we going to do ours, and so the pre-schedule gets really divided. But now they don't want to do a huge one, so what they're doing is they're increasing the times of confession that's already being offered. Maybe they'll add an extra day, maybe they'll add an extra hour here or there. And so what that means is, instead of doing one penance service that kind of the whole parish can attend, they're doing 20 extended hours, 20 different times of extended hours. So that's helpful in, just people thinking about COVID, right? Like non-large groups, non-areas where if there's someone sick, they're not going to get it spread. But that also means that our priests are giving a bigger commitment, not just at their home parish, but at the couple of neighboring parishes. And so that bigger commitment will lead to less times that we can do additional things. So it's funny, like when you go with simplicity, like, okay, we're just going to offer an extra hour instead of doing this huge one-day production, it just adds a layer of complexity, right? You can't do everything, you can only do certain things. And so I think it's a better way forward right now, negotiating crowds versus actually getting the full numbers that would otherwise come. But it's just going to take more toll on our priests.
Yeah. But it is smart to do more of the smaller gatherings. And I'll be curious to see what your response is on that. I feel like in my gut that at this time, and even not just quarantine, but just where culture is at, I feel like confession is going to be, if I can say this, it's going to be a hit this year.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? I mean, we always want repentance to be at the source of repentance is the authentic form of renewal and reform in the church, right? So you can't have a bunch of people micromanaging their way to heaven, right? It only comes through people actively surrendering their lives over and over again. And often the last thing we want to surrender to God is our sin, even though we know that's why Christ came, that's why he died on the cross. So when you start having massive issues in the culture, right? My parish is divided probably just like any other parish out there, where the liberals and conservatives have reached a fever pitch and we can no longer talk to each other. It's fun being on leadership team here at our staff, because I get all the emails, and we're not too right wing, we're not too left wing, we're not this, we're not that. And it becomes amazing that my response to all of these people is, you need to repent, and so do I, right? And so my hope is that this having more confession and more confession hours can lead, and me and my evangelizing and faith formation component, pushing parents, adults, high school students to the confessional, can start to break some of these strongholds of anxiety, depression, rage, in people's lives. So let's hope.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, people have been so focused outward, pointing fingers, and what about them, and what about what they did. I think it would be healthy for us to encourage our parishes to look inward. What about me? What's in my heart? So it's good. Let's move on to Holy Week.
Okay.
And as we head into that, what are your thoughts?
Holy Week is making us nervous. At St. Anthony's, we have so our parish has been around for 22 years, and about 20 years ago, our Holy Week, the Triduum of Holy Thursday and Good Friday and Easter Vigil at 8 p.m., 8:30 Mass, they are standing room only. When we do the veneration of the cross, I mean, we have this very elaborate and liturgical way of doing it that I've never seen at other parishes. It reminds me of something that's more akin to like European style. Like there's a deep celebratory nature of these things, hesitate to use the word pageantry, but there's this huge aspect of like the community involvement in the liturgy that I think is beautiful. And so it always draws a ton of people. And so our fear is, I mean, we could have as many people at one Mass as we do at the busiest Christmas Mass for Holy Thursday. So we're trying to figure out ways that can, and even things like Palm Sunday, right? You're going to have a bunch of people grabbing palms. They're going to all be outside. So we're going through right now what Rome is offering in terms of, okay, well, if you can't start outside, so probably what we'll do is block half the parking lot in our entrance and just let the people fill a much greater area. and we're going to put bigger emphasis on outdoor sound system and the quality thereof. We're not just going to set up our crappy band speaker and, like hopefully that suffices for getting the sound across. But we're really going to invest in the outdoor component because, Palm Sunday liturgy begins on the outside and then processes inside. And so we're going to have, to make exceptions and kind of, have elderly people more at risk already in the pews, and then have people space out and spread out in a much greater area than just right in front of the church doors. Easter Vigil, we're looking at, we don't think there'll be a huge demand for Easter Vigil. It's already a tough mass because it rarely starts and ends on the same day because it's so long. 7 readings before you even get to the traditional first reading, right? You go through all of salvation history. The baptisms, confirmations, and Holy Communions, we are going forward with our adults and children that are going to get baptized, confirmed, and receive First Holy Communion. We're in Texas again. Our limitations are a lot less than other people in the country, so we're going to do it. Instead of having our confirmation candidates all shoulder to shoulder looking outward, they're just going to stay in their pews, and the priest will come to them. But other than that, we're trying to keep it to this just family and friends of the people entering the church. That'll be our Easter Vigil Mass. Good Friday and the Veneration of the Cross, we're going to have people just, instead of kissing the feet or kissing the cross, they will just bow before the cross or something like that. So I'm seeing this with a lot of parishes. They're defaulting to wipes and things like that. And into those little alcohol wipes, wipe your forehead if you're going to get the oil of confirmation, or wipe your hands if you're going to get. I found that to be a logistical nightmare when you have a large parish. What if someone doesn't? Is the usher supposed to tackle them? Where do they put the little trash? And the trash is just like everywhere and all this stuff. It just becomes a kind of a logistical nightmare. So our goal is simplicity within the liturgy in as far as possible. We are training up a smaller choir who can really knock it out of the ballpark with fewer voices, because we're not allowed to have full choirs, and if they have a full choir, they'll have to be masked. So that's what we're trying to do. Smaller but louder in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think smaller parishes already know this, that you can be simple and beautiful. And I think the bigger you grow, the more money you have, the more technology you have, you need to remember that great line from Jurassic Park: just because we can doesn't mean that we should. Right.
And now we're selling it.
That's right. No, but that's good. I think that's a good word, a good reminder for big parishes. Keep it simple. Think about logistics. Think about your staff and your resources as far as people. And how can you make it still meaningful, but keep it simple? Any of that that you guys are planning to do online, as far as like providing guidance for families as far as foot washing or the palms or the veneration of the cross?
Yeah, what we'll do is kind of what we did for the Christmas stuff. We'll put the entire, obviously we're going to live stream everything, but then we're going to put the worship aids and all that stuff online so that parents can have it and download it and print it, and so that we're not printing out 10,000 pieces of paper, that they can have it on their, on their phones or whatever. And that was wildly successful. It was more successful than I thought it would be. For Christmas time, it went really well. So the idea of pushing off as much as we can to the domestic church as opposed to the institutional parish is only going to increase spirituality within the home, right? And so my whole thing, my subtle sneakiness is, hey, here's the songs that we're going to sing today, and here's the readings that we're going to do. Oh, and here's an article written about how to teach this at home with your kids before you come to Mass or after Mass, or like here's how to say a simple prayer for Easter, or here's the catechism on the historicity of the resurrection, and like stuff like that I like fanatically try to implement everywhere I can. Little seeds here and there, just little seeds.
Well, I mean, family catechesis has been a focus and something we've known we need to do better for a long time. And it feels like quarantine has accelerated a lot of that, because we've had to, and we've had to create, and people are more comfortable with connecting online.
Yeah.
Give me your last thoughts on this Easter season. It's kind of our second chance. We did this last Easter.
Yeah.
What are your expectations? What are the positive things you're feeling like we learned from last year or we're gonna experience this year?
Yeah. I think the first thing that we learned from last year is we have to do everything on our end to build connection with the people at home. The difference between last year and this year, so last year was all about having cameras that could move throughout the sanctuary so people felt like they were there. We recorded Stations of the Cross, and we had Spanish subtitles and all this stuff to make sure that everyone, and me and my family, every Friday we fired up the Stations of the Cross video that our church rebroadcast. It was the same video every week, but they rebroadcast it on Facebook Live, and it was awesome because it actually became a strong community event. And we realized that once you have kind of like that video, you have a level of control that you don't have during live stuff, that we were able to make it even better for people's experience because you felt like you're right there. You're not dealing with like, what did he say? Oh, now I kneel, right? You could have all this stuff. And so we learned from the online video side of things how to do that even better for this year with the mix of most people that will participate. We're looking at probably 50-50. Half will be present, half will be remote. And so we got the remote stuff, I think, dialed in really, really well. So I think that's going to be good. I think we are really striving to bring people back on campus. I'm launching in-person youth ministry on Sunday. Our confirmation program has just met for 3 weeks in a row, no problems. We take over the whole campus because we spread out, and distance and all that stuff. But there's an element of near normalcy that I think will bring much more peace and calm this year than the disappointment that was not being able to be in person last year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we've managed expectations some, and now we're able to even like over deliver in some ways than what we were last.
Exactly.
So, hey, Mike, you are a gift to the church, and it's always great to talk to, and a humble gift to the church. But remind us how people can follow you online and learn more about what you're doing there.
Yeah, my two biggest things, you can go to layevangelist.com, but the two biggest kind of projects that I'm involved in is the podcast, Every Knee Shall Bow, and that's through Ascension Press. You go to Ascension Press's homepage, and you go to their media section, you can find it there, wherever you get podcasts. I also do another one, a colorful podcast called Catching Foxes. And I'm excited that we're going to be a part of Seek, which is the largest gathering of young adults. They're doing an online one. We were a part of it back in 2019, and it was a whole lot of fun. So both my podcasts are there. If you want to learn how to evangelize as a Catholic, Every Knee Shall Bow is a good resource for. We've had parish staffs, we've had clergy listen, we've had DREs, we've had volunteers, we just have normal people all across the board. It's suitable for us all. So those are the two big projects that I point people to.
We'll check those out, and thank you for getting babysitters for today. You got a break, Mike got a break from homeschooling to join us today. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, good deal.
We're about 5 minutes over, but I want to share one last thought with you in preparing for this season, and that is communicate. Make sure everyone knows what your plan is, what opportunities are there for them, and how they can be a part of those. And that starts with your website. The landing page, the front page of your website, as I believe leading up to Ash Wednesday, the whole thing should shift towards this season where it's easy for people to find information about what you're doing for Ash Wednesday, what you're doing through Lent. I would make that the first panel people see, because between now and Easter, 90% of the people going to your website are going to be wanting that information and wondering, why not make it the first thing that they see? I'll share with you real quick. This is from like 2016, but it was, I captured this front page of this website here in Dallas, Church of Incarnation. But you can see they wanted to emphasize the simplicity of Lent so much, they turned their entire website black and white. Really, it's something easy to do. If somebody knows how to program websites, it wouldn't take much. but you don't have to be that drastic. But the bar across the top, the Holy Week schedule and the Lent schedule, all right there immediately when they go to the site. And so encourage you to do that. Social media everywhere. Make sure people know what you're doing, what opportunities are there for them. Make it easy for them to get that information and to engage with your parish. I promise you that will greatly increase the engagement of your parishioners. All right, that's all we've got for today. Our next webinar is February 23rd. It's going to be on innovations in catechesis. We'll actually have a link in the follow-up email where you can register for that now. And you will be getting an email in the next 24 hours that has a link to this webinar and all the resources that you saw in it, so you can watch it again or share it with others. Thank you for joining us today, and we pray for you as you go into this season of self-reflection and new life that our world needs so much right now. Pray that you will encounter Christ in it yourself as you serve others. Thanks for joining us. God bless.